Marigolds. This marigold's on the left, and purple Majesty millet that's all flowering on the right. This purple Majesty millet is the one I was talking about that we do save seeds from. A great thing that looks like a cattail, and you put it in tall arrangements. We sell these for $1 a stem, and they're a beautiful ornamental millet. You can grow a bunch of different millets as ornamental things for bouquets. And this gold coin marigold isn't available anymore. It's an African marigold, but we've replaced it with some other varieties called Babuda and Narai. You see they have to be netted, but this is actually quite popular cut flower, real productive. We grow overwintering Sweet Williams, which is a type of dianthus, but we also grow these annual ones that have been developed to grow without any overwintering cold. And this Amazon Neon and Bouquet Purple are the best ones. They'll bloom about 3 months from seed, and they have brilliant colors, so people really like these. This is the overwintering. You see how long that bed is? That takes forever to cut a bed that long. But these come on right in the middle of May for us, right when everybody's having weddings and during Mother's Day. Mother's Day is our biggest day at the farmer's market for the whole year. So people just swamp flower growers at our market on Mother's Day. But these get started midsummer, or planted out midsummer, and they have to overwinter. This is an old-fashioned carnation relative, Sweet William. That's what they look like up close. And there's the newer varieties of marigolds that we're using now, Babuda Yellow, Babuda Gold. Okay, bouquet making, and then we'll get on to record keeping. This is the, luckily for us, there's a lot of people intimidated by bouquet making because I think there are vegetable growers at market who could get in on the cut flower market, and this part scares them. It's not that hard. Bouquet making is really just a matter of practice, just like most things, and an eye for color. And when you're around these things all the time, you start to have a feel for them. Here we are making some bouquets, and then we have to teach all these new people how to make bouquets. Now she's got a couple things already going wrong with her bouquet, in that she's got two really tall things sticking way out the middle, you know, and that lily is kind of lost there, and then she's got all that, and then she's holding it way too high, like she's choking it to death. So really my instructions to these kids generally is to make a cloud and put something in it. So, and when I say make a cloud, I mean take that filler material. She's got statice here. Can be any number of filler materials. Could be eucalyptus, could be other things. And to create an architectural backbone for these elements to go into. And generally they'll be, and you want the backbone to have somewhat of an ice cream cone shape. Then you can start populating it with spikes and accents, and then smaller pieces. But in general, the composition is what's important. You can't have this type of thing. I think Ansel is, now he probably doesn't know what he's doing there. But luckily the people at the farmer's market don't know that they don't know what they're doing, for at least for a while. But I do, and so it makes me nervous. So this is what we do on Friday afternoons. We are in there, I'm circulating around. Like these guys have already had plenty of experience all summer long. This is late in the summer. But when and so I'm letting them, you know, we just tell them, okay, we're gonna have to start off the market with so many buckets of 6s, so many buckets of 10s, so many buckets of 15s, and they know what to do. But when we first get started, I won't put all this variety out there. I'll put out a limited color range and exactly what I want them to do, and make a bouquet, tell them what I want, and they're going to make stuff like that. And just because often buckets of flowers at the market look better if they all are the same in one bucket. You know, there's a certain amount of confusion that happens to people when they see all this color, especially if it's not very well matched. And it's actually too much. And so as you refine your bouquet making, you start to refine the color range. Sometimes, you know, we do monochromatic bouquets where they're just all kind of shades of pink, or all shades of orange and pink, or all shades of blue. Some things appeal to a whole different variety of people, of course. So it's like I said, as soon as I say something to somebody about how their bouquet looks terrible or their bouquet sucks, then somebody buys it, you know. So, but the interns love this. I have friends that are cut flower growers, and they won't let any of their hired people make bouquets. But it's been definitely in my interest to have everybody trained as well as possible, because we are under fire at the farmers market to do this as fast as possible. This is the secret to our financial success, is being able to do this as fast as possible. It's like playing speed chess. So you've got all the elements there. You have a certain amount of time on Friday afternoon. We make some so we can get started in the morning. We've got stuff on the display rack, but the job of all these people at market on Saturday is to keep that display rack full and respond to customers who want stuff, okay?
Are you wrapping it with twine at the bottom?
No, rubber band.
Oh, okay.
Rubber band and slipped in a sleeve. We've done, for years we used newspaper. We would take a bouquet like this, put a rubber band on it, wrap it in newspaper, hand it to the customer. That was it, no water. Now everything goes in a sleeve. We have packets of sleeves that are hanging up from our umbrellas or from our tents. We pull off, stick it in the sleeve, and we put it in a plastic bag that's got water in it. Then you put a rubber band around it. And that was from watching people for years at farmers market buy our bouquets and then walk around with them for 2 hours in the heat, and then wonder why they didn't last once they got home. It's not like we like using plastic. It's because it just turned out to be a necessity to protect the things until they got home. We've used paper sleeves also, brown paper sleeves. They're kind of hard for us to use. We still have a bunch that we use, but in general, we're using and we've used biodegradable plastic sleeves too, but we have to order in such huge quantities, we can't always get them. This is something that is a huge growing market for anybody that's going to grow cut flowers seriously. We have, since people had known us for years at the market, they started calling in us and wanting to know if we did flowers for weddings. Do we do flowers for weddings? Do we do flowers for weddings? Okay, yes, we do flowers for weddings. So at the simplest, that means somebody wants you to make a bridal bouquet and 3 maids bouquets, and they have 10 tables for the rehearsal dinner. That's at the simplest. Okay, well, you already know how to make bouquets. You have them bring you a sample of the vase they're going to use on the table so that you can size it and price it. It's when you get into the bridal bouquets and the bridesmaids bouquets that things become more complicated, and you have to do some training. And so Lynn Bazinski, who publishes Growing for Market, put this book out last year with Erin, who was her writer for the flower column for a couple of years. And it's got a DVD in it that takes you through the entire process of making bridal bouquets. It's really not that complicated. Of course, it requires a certain eye. But I actually had this out watching it one late Friday night when I had the wedding on my hands this summer. And these are pictures that were taken of our bouquets that were sent back to me by the brides. This is what you really want to get your brides to send pictures to you, because once they have those professional photographers on site, they can do wonders with showing you what your flowers look like. It's amazing to me when I see where all of our flowers have gone on a Saturday. If I actually go into somebody's home and see where it went, it gives me a whole new impression of what we're doing, because people put these in locations, beautiful places that I would never have imagined, but you should be able to imagine those situations when you're making them. So this is just a bride who sent us pictures. Now, she wanted peonies that we actually had to order in because she wanted them after our peonies were finished. But everything else in the bouquet is ours except for that leatherleaf fern, the snapdragons, the anemones. And there's all her bridesmaids. You can see those were not even, well, they were wrapped in ribbon, but it's basically like making a regular bouquet that's wrapped in ribbon and pinned. It's not that difficult. There's another one. There's another, that was a different wedding, and she didn't, yeah, we've got ribbon on that too, but that was in early spring. Now, some of the brides, you got to be careful who you deal with. Do you really want to deal with a picky bride and her mother, or who wants all the stuff that you can't grow that you got to order in? I don't. If you have to order in too much stuff, I don't really want to deal with it. We have specialty cut flowers, locally grown, and this bride knew me and she said, I just want you to take whatever you have and make great looking bouquets. You know, a lot of times they'll tell you what their dresses colors are. They have a certain range, but the less picky the bride is and the more committed they are to local and organic. I always tell them at the end of the email I'm answering to thank you for your interest in local and organic, because I'm telling you, there's big money in this. If you have an affinity for it, you can make some really good money with weddings. And we keep our prices very reasonable. The most I've charged for a bridal bouquet was $90. The least was $20. It depends on who I'm talking to. I'll get a call from a musician who doesn't have much money, who's getting married on the spur of the moment, and she can't afford more than a $25 bridal bouquet. Why can't I make that? I can make that. It's just going to be smaller. You know, I sell $25 bouquets at the farmer's market that are huge. Just because I have to put a little bit of ribbon on it, you know, I'm going to size it down some. Depends on what they want. And the elements, depends on what the elements are in it, how expensive it's going to be. That one's actually got elephant garlic tops in it. And then we also make boutonnieres for the men. These are pretty simple to make. We only charge $7 a piece for boutonnieres. These haven't got the ribbon on them yet. But people love this kind of stuff. More and more, they want to have the types of weddings. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about record keeping a little bit. And I'm going to... You can see that we have a lot of elements going on, and how do we keep track of it? And keeping track and projecting how we want our season to run, if at all possible, is dependent on how we keep records during the summer.
Do y'all deliver to the weddings?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, I would be stressed by all that.
Okay, you know, I have friends like the current lady who's writing for Growing for Market, the flower column. They're a young couple. They're growing flowers. They grow mostly only flowers, and they grow for Whole Foods. They grow for farmers markets. She's developing her wedding business, and she's looking for high-end wedding business. I'm talking $1,000 and over, $1,000 to $2,000, say, and that's going to include delivery and setup, putting the bouquets on the tables. And consultations with the bride about what she wants, and possibly ordering in the stuff that the bride wants that she doesn't have. I don't want to do that. I'm at the farmer's market, and on Saturdays when a lot of the weddings are happening, and my role there at the market I feel is kind of critical. You know, I'm the fastest bouquet maker, number one. So we have our brides come and pick up at the farmer's market. We have them come and pick up early. We have it all packed in lily crates already with their name on it. All they have to do is we normally try to have them bring the vases to market on a preceding Tuesday or Thursday. And we actually arrange into the vases and pack them in these lily crates, and all they have to do is load them in their car. We charge them a deposit on the crate and the buckets, and add that onto the invoice. For years we didn't do that. And now all they do is got to take them out and put them on location, because I don't want to drive over there. I don't want that stress either. Some people would pay big money to have you get a van and drive everything over there and set it up for them so they don't have to worry about it, but I don't want to do that. So it depends on how involved you want to get. So when people initially write you, you have to kind of suss out, is this a problem bride or a problem mother, or are you going to be able to charge enough to deal with that? You know, florists have to deal with that all the time. That's their bread and butter, is those problem people. So depends on how involved you want to get. Okay. How in the world do we keep all this straight? This is a big interest for me. I've been playing with it for years because it's just fascinating me to be able to think that I could be in control by projecting how I want the season to run. And so there's a lot of pieces involved in record keeping. Like, how do we get from an empty field now to this type of situation in middle of the summer and have it look like this every single week that we have customers. I mean, this is tricky. And we need some way of keeping track of when things have to be planted and when do we need the transplants. Because we want to we want to maximize every opportunity to sell to the public, right? So. Oh, this is just showing part of the things that we have to plan for. We have to plan not only for all this stuff at the farmers market, but we also have a small CSA. This is a CSA open house, and these are people coming out in the CSA that we're packing boxes every Wednesday morning for a CSA. So that requires a certain amount of planning on the vegetable end. And then we also sell to this natural food store that sells about $40,000 worth of organic produce every week. So it's in our interest to maximize our impact on all these markets. We have only 4 acres of production, but that 4 acres of production grossed about $170,000 in last year, 2014. So we're talking like, how do we keep crops going in and out of there as much as we can to maximize our profit? And the hoop houses. Okay. So this time of year, this is what I'm doing. I always waiting for some snow or some bad weather so that I don't feel like I have to be outside, and I'm up in the office, up in that little room up there, and wishing for snow so that I don't have to think about doing anything. And I'm going over all these records. So we have one of the very first things that we ever started doing. Yeah. Well, we started keeping records right away. 1984, we started keeping a daily log of everything that was happening, both the temperature, maximum, minimum temperatures, and everything that we did that day. That's the way we started. We have records going back to 1984 of just a daily work log. That's one of the basic things to do. So just some of the things that in order to put together a planting plan, some of the things you have to start doing, I feel you have to start doing, is managing your daily activities and your labor. I have composition notebooks. I like composition notebooks like this because you can't tear pages out easily. They don't lose pages very easily. And so we have a harvest log hanging in the barn, and I'll go over each one of these. We have a daily log, work log, that's sitting down in the house. We have a to-do list, which is a daily log of everything that has to be done that day, and often a week's projection. And you can see down on the right, I have a little notebook I keep in my pocket that goes out with me in the field, and I write down everything that I see that I've got to buy this irrigation part, we got to weed this over here, and so that I have that in my pocket out in the field. Well, these farm maps, harvest log, CSA log, greenhouse log, market log, all these things. One of the very first things we did was to create a mapping system for the garden. Okay, so the garden is divided into sections, and each bed then gets a letter, which is the section letter, and then a number, which is the number of the bed. The beds are numbered from the bottom to the top of the hill. And I just created these text boxes in a Word program. So you can just draw out a little text box and put them next to each other. And inside that text box is the section letter and the number of the bed, and then the length of the bed. Now, our beds are not all the same length because of our contour. We've got a bunch of different size beds. But when I'm projecting what I want to plant there, I need to know how long that bed is so I know how many plants have to go there. So, or maybe I want to just find out how much total bed footage we planted of zinnias last year. So there we are. We got an A section, a B section, D section. We actually have on out to a Z section in other parts. Everything is in the sections and the beds are numbered from the bottom to the top, and then put on this map. So at the beginning of the season, if you'll map that out with those boxes, or however you're going to do it. The reason I use text boxes is because I want to go back in and put it all on a computer for my permanent records. But when I start the season out, like right now I have a whole new map that only has in the boxes what's in the ground right now, whether it's cover crop or an overwintering Sweet William, or maybe in the hoop houses have spinach and lettuce and stuff. It has everything that's in there and when it was planted. And those are inserted in plastic, what are they called? They're just plastic, document protector that goes in a three-ring binder. And so I can take that in the field with me, or I can hand it to somebody on the crew, and they can slip that one page out of there for a certain section. If they're planting gladiolas, they can take that page out and write down the varieties. But every time we plant something, it gets written in that little box. So on the 3rd of March, we planted spinach. We planted 4 rows, 6 inches apart, or it was a planting pattern, and also if if it was transplanted or direct sown. This takes practice to do, but you have to do it if you really want good records about what's been successful, because sometimes you want to capture that same planting date the next year because your crop turned out so good. You want to see if you can hit that same date next year. So this is one of the first steps. We just keep these maps of all of the planting dates and varieties and the planting pattern. A lot of times we'll forget, well, did we use 5 rows? Did we use 4 rows? Did we use 6 rows? How far apart were they? So we note, and this is also good for our interns too, because we got them involved in all this note taking. About once a month, we sit down after lunch and I give them a copy of the maps like this at the beginning of the season. They're required to keep them up, even if they never put anything on it until we have our map session, because we sit down, and often what happens is some of them are really good record takers and they have captured dates that I missed and I captured dates that they missed, and we all bring our maps up to date. And by involving them in it, it's really helped me out a lot.